Canada's foreign ministry says it is trying to make contact with a second Canadian who is believed to have been detained in China on suspicion of harming national security. Businessman Mr Spavor had contacted Canadian officials this week to say he was being questioned. A Canadian ex-diplomat was arrested in China earlier this week. On 1 December, Canada arrested an executive with Chinese telecoms giant Huawei. At the request of the US, the Americans are seeking the extradition of Meng Wanzhou, Chief Financial Officer, CFO of Huawei, on suspicion of violating sanctions on Iran. China has threatened unspecified consequences if she is not released. Mr Spavor is a businessman based in Dandong, near the Chinese border with North Korea. He has deep ties to the North Korean government. Ex-diplomat Michael Corrig currently works for a think tank, the International Crisis Group (ICG), which has said it is concerned for his health and safety. Both men were apparently detained following the arrest of Ms. Meng. Although, after the detention of Mr. Corrig, Canada said there was currently no explicit indication of any link. Canadian officials said the reason for Mr. Corrig's detention remained unclear, while Chinese state media have reported that he is being held on suspicion of engaging in activities that harm China's state security. At a news conference in Ottawa on Wednesday, Foreign Minister Ms Freeland said Mr. Corrig's case had been raised directly with Chinese officials. Foreign Ministry spokesman Guillaume Bérubé confirmed that Mr. Spavor was presently missing in China after Ms Freeland said a second Canadian had contacted them earlier in the week because he was being asked questions by Chinese authorities. Canada is working hard to determine Mr. Spavor's whereabouts, Mr. Bérubé said. Chinese state media confirmed on Thursday that, as with the previous arrest, Mr. Spavor was under investigation on suspicion of engaging in activities that endanger China's national security. Mr. Spavor runs an organization called Peak to Cultural Exchange, which organizes business, culture, and tourism trips to North Korea. He is a regular visitor to North Korea and regularly comments in the media on Korean issues. He is particularly well known for helping to arrange the visit by former NBA star Dennis Rodman to North Korea in 2013. Rodman is a personal friend of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. One of Mr. Spavor's last tweet on Sunday said he was about to travel to Seoul in South Korea, but he did not arrive on Monday as planned. Ms. Meng was granted bail on Tuesday for
$10 M6 米7 4 米
bail, but could still be extradited to the US. A crash involving a high-speed train at a station in the Turkish capital Ankara has killed at least 7 people and injured more than 40. Local authorities say images from the scene showed emergency services working to rescue people from badly damaged carriages. Reports citing local officials said the high-speed train had collided with another train, then into an overpass. The accident occurred at about
6点30分
local time,
3点30分
GMT. The train was traveling from Ankara to the city of Konya in western Turkey. The crash happened at the Narsandiz railway station, around
8000 米 5
miles from Ankara's main station. The local governor's office said the train driver was among the dead and that 46 people were injured. 3 are said to be in a serious condition. A large number of emergency workers arrived at the scene shortly after the collision, which occurred in snowy conditions. Search and rescue efforts are underway. In July,
24
people were killed in Turkey when a train traveling from the northwestern town of Cappaculine en route to Istanbul derailed. North and South Korean soldiers have made several friendly crossings into each other's territory for the first time since the countries were divided. The men were checking the dismantling of guard posts in the demilitarized zone DMZ along the border as part of the two sides' recent rapprochement. Footage showed the soldiers shaking hands at the border before crossing. The Korean War in the 1950s left the peninsula divided and no formal peace treaty has ever been signed. As part of the talks between the divided peninsula, the South is President Moon Jae-in and the North is Kim Jong-un agreed to remove some of the guard posts on the heavily fortified border. The two leaders held a historic meeting in April, which led to talk between North Korea and the US. Since November, both North and South have blown up or dismantled 10 of their border posts. On Wednesday, South Korean inspectors visited each of the guard posts on the North side, while North Korea inspectors later inspected the same process in the South. This marks the first time since the division that the soldiers of the North and South are peacefully crossing the military demarcation line. The South Korean Defense Ministry said in a statement, both sides still have more guard posts in the DMZ, both over and underground. Laura Baker, BBC News. So this would have been unthinkable 12 months ago. Last November, shots rang out across the DMZ after an North Korean soldier made a dash across the border. Now the two sides are shaking hands, exchanging cigarettes and walking into each other's territory peacefully for the first time. Seoul hopes that these small steps will be irreversible, and it will become difficult for either side to backtrack on what they believe is a path towards peace. But the insurmountable obstacle remains the North's nuclear weapons. The US maintains it will never allow any agreement to formally end the Korean War, nor will it lift economic sanctions imposed upon the North while the Kim regime poses a nuclear threat. So yes, applaud these images and the progress that they represent, but it is worth keeping in mind just how very far this potential peace process has to go. Last month a train traveled from South Korea across the border into North Korea for the first time in decades, as part of a commitment by the South to help the North modernize its rail network. There has been speculation Mr. Kim could visit Seoul this year, but the Southeast government earlier this week said that no such trip was expected before 2019. Despite its misleading name, the DMZ is one of the world's most heavily fortified places. The area is a strip of land
250千米155
miles long and
4000米25
miles wide that runs across the peninsula. It is heavily mined and fortified, with barbed wire, rows of surveillance cameras and electric fencing, and is guarded by tens of thousands of troops on both sides. A man was intercepted at an Australian airport after flying from Indonesia with 2 live squirrels smuggled in his luggage. Authorities say the Australian resident may face criminal charges after the animals were detected at Brisbane Airport last week. Both squirrels were put down after being deemed by no security risk. Australian authorities said the nation has strict quarantine laws that famously caught out actors Johnny Depp and Amber Heard in 2015. The squirrels allegedly traveled unchecked in luggage from Bali, which is about 6 hours by plane from Brisbane and a popular holiday destination for Australians. Authorities have not named a possible motive. The frightening thing around that case, around the 2 squirrels, is that half of his Instagram followers thought it was a great idea to do that. Agricultural Minister David Littleproud told the Australian Associated Press, these animals bring pests and diseases that could actually hurt many Australians, so it is important that we are not ignorant to biosecurity. People who violate Australia's biosecurity laws face fines or up to 5 years in prison, according to the Australian Border Force. In 2016, Steppenford had to record an apology video after smuggling their dogs, Pistol and Bull, into Australia and becoming embroiled in a row that drew much attention. Last month, former NBA player Lamar Patterson was also stalked at Brisbane Airport with his pet dog. The dog was seized and deported. An Iranian political activist jailed for his messages on social media has tried after spending 60 days on hunger strike. His family says Vahid Sayadi Nasiri had been accused of insulting Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and other offenses. He was released last March after serving 2.5 years in prison, but detained again 5 months later. The activist demanded his transfer from a high-security unit of a prison in the city of Qom to a different location. Vahid Sayadi Nasiri was initially arrested in September 2015 and sentenced to 8 years in prison for insulting the Supreme Leader and propaganda against the state, according to the advocacy group Iran Human Rights Monitor. The charges were related to posts he had made on his Facebook page. He was later pardoned and released early. However, he was arrested again in August, just months after his release, reportedly on similar charges. He began his hunger strike in October, in protest at the conditions of his imprisonment and his lack of access to a lawyer, according to Iran Human Rights Monitor. He also said the principle of separation of prisoners' crimes was being violated as he was being held with ordinary criminals and was being attacked and harassed. The group said conditions in the Qom prison are described as harsh. Correspondents say the activist had reportedly been taken to hospital in the wake of his hunger strike. His sister, Elijah, said the family had been informed by authorities of his death. No other details were immediately available.